The rain-slicked steps of the National War Memorial gleamed under the gray Washington sky as Eleanor Thompson, frail yet unyielding at 95, clutched her late husband's Purple Heart medal like a lifeline. Her wrinkled hands trembled not from age, but from the sting of the security guard's words. "Ma'am, without a ticket, I can't let you in. Its policy." In that moment, the world blurred, and Eleanor felt the ghosts of her past rise up, screaming against the injustice of being barred from honoring the man who had given everything for this country. She had risen before dawn that crisp autumn morning, her bones aching with the weight of decades, determined to make the pilgrimage she had dreamed of for years. The bus ride from her modest nursing home in Virginia had been long and bumpy, but Eleanor endured it with the same quiet fortitude that had carried her through the telegram's arrival in 1944, the one that shattered her world, announcing Sergeant William Thompson's death on the beaches of Normandy. Now, standing at the memorial's gates, she faced not enemy fire, but bureaucratic indifference, a barrier as cold and impenetrable as the stone walls before her. Tears welled in her faded blue eyes as she turned away, the metal pressing into her palm like a thorn. Around her, tourists snapped photos, oblivious to the living history being turned away. Eleanor shuffled back to the bench where she had left her walker, her mind flooding with memories of William's laughter, his promises whispered under starlit skies before he shipped out. She had raised their 2 children alone, worked double shifts in a factory to keep food on the table, all while holding on to the hope that one day, America would remember the sacrifices of widows like her. But today, it seemed, even memorials had forgotten. As she sat there, the rain picking up, a young volunteer named Mia approached, her ponytail swinging with youthful energy. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you all right?" Mia asked, her voice soft with concern. Eleanor looked up, seeing in the girl's face an echo of her own daughter at that age, curious, kind-hearted. She nodded slowly, but the words spilled out anyway, a torrent of grief and frustration she hadn't unleashed in years. "They won't let me in. After all these years, they say I need a ticket to see where my husband's name is etched." Mia's eyes widened, and she knelt down, placing a gentle hand on Eleanor's knee. "That's not right. Let me see what I can do." But even as Mia hurried off to speak with the guards, Eleanor knew it was futile. Policies were policies, as unyielding as the war that had taken William. She watched the girl argue animatedly, her gestures passionate, but the guards shook their heads. Mia returned, defeated, offering to buy Eleanor a coffee instead. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "This place is supposed to honor people like you." They sat together in the cafe across the street, the steam from their cups rising like forgotten prayers. Eleanor shared snippets of her life, the letters from William, yellowed with time, describing the horrors of D-Day, the nights she cried herself to sleep while her children slumbered, the community that rallied around her, neighbors bringing casseroles and words of comfort. Mia listened intently, her phone forgotten, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're a hero too, you know," Mia whispered. "The ones left behind fought their own battles." As the afternoon waned, Mia helped Eleanor back to the bus stop, promising to write a letter to the memorial's administration. "This can't stand," she said firmly. Eleanor smiled faintly, touched by the girl's fire, but deep down, she felt the familiar ache of resignation. The ride home was silent, the metal heavy in her pocket, a reminder of dreams deferred. That night, in her small room adorned with faded photos and war mementos, Eleanor prayed not for herself, but for the souls like William who deserved better than forgotten widows at locked gates. The next morning dawned brighter, the sun piercing through her curtains like a hesitant apology. Eleanor rose slowly, her routine unchanged, a cup of weak tea, the morning news on her ancient radio. But as she settled into her armchair, the phone rang, a rare occurrence, usually her granddaughter checking in. She picked up with trembling hands, her voice steady despite the surprise. "Hello, Mrs. Thompson? This is the White House calling. Please hold for the president." The words hung in the air like a dream, unreal and electrifying. Eleanor's heart pounded, memories flashing of President Roosevelt's fireside chats that had comforted her during the war, Eisenhower's speeches that marked its end. Could this be real? On the line came a warm, familiar voice, the current president himself. "Mrs. Thompson, I've heard about what happened yesterday at the memorial. I want to personally apologize and invite you back as my guest." Eleanor's breath caught, tears spilling anew. But these were different tears of validation, of a nation's long overdue gratitude. The conversation lasted longer than she expected. The president shared stories of his own grandfather, a veteran of Korea, and how the sacrifices of that generation shaped the world. "You and women like you held the home front together," he said, his tone laced with genuine emotion. "We owe you more than we can repay." Eleanor, voice quivering, recounted William's last letter, the one where he wrote of his love for her and their unborn child. For the first time in decades, she felt seen, not as a relic, but as a pillar of strength. News of the call spread like wildfire through the nursing home. Staff gathered around. Residents wheeled in to hear the tale, their eyes wide with awe. Eleanor's granddaughter, Sarah, rushed over, hugging her tightly. "Grandma, this is incredible." "The president," Sarah exclaimed, pulling out her phone to capture the moment. But Eleanor waved it away, her mind still reeling from the unexpected turn. In the days that followed, preparations began for her return to the memorial. Mia, the volunteer from before, reached out via email. Sarah had connected them, offering to accompany her. "I can't believe it," Mia wrote. "Your story touched so many." Eleanor smiled at the message, feeling a spark of connection across generations. Perhaps this wasn't just about her. It was about bridging the gaps time had widened. As the car arranged by the White House pulled up, Eleanor dressed in her finesta simple black dress, with William's medal pinned proudly. The drive back to D.C. was filled with anticipation, the landscape blurring past like chapters of her life. At the memorial, a small crowd awaited, officials, veterans, even a few reporters. The president wasn't there in person, but his aide presented a letter, sealed with the presidential emblem, commending her resilience. Stepping through the gates she had been denied before, Eleanor felt a profound peace. She traced William's name on the wall, her fingers lingering on the cold stone. Whispers of the past echoed their wedding day, the birth of their son, the empty chair at holidays. Tears fell, but they were cleansing, releasing years of pent-up sorrow. Mia stood beside her, linking arms. "See? Sometimes the world does right." Eleanor nodded, her heart full. In that moment, she realized the true memorial wasn't stone or marble, but the lives touched by sacrifice the children raised, the stories shared, the quiet acts of love that outlasted wars. Yet, as the sun set, casting long shadows over the grounds, Eleanor couldn't shake a lingering question. Why had it taken a denial to spark this recognition? She pondered it on the ride home, the letter clutched in her lap. The answer, she decided, lay in the human spirit's capacity for change, for empathy awakened by injustice. Back at the nursing home, Eleanor became a quiet celebrity. Residents shared their own tales, widows, veterans, survivors forming a circle of shared memory. Sarah suggested writing a book, but Eleanor demurred. "Just live it," she said softly. "That's enough." One evening, as she sat by the window watching stars emerge, the phone rang again. This time, it was Mia. "Mrs. Thompson, I have an idea. What if we start a foundation for war widows? Your story could help so many." Eleanor's eyes lit up, a new purpose igniting. At 95, life was far from over. It was just beginning anew. The foundation idea took root faster than Eleanor could have imagined. Mia, with her boundless energy, rallied volunteers and set up meetings. Sarah handled the digital side, creating a website that shared stories of widows like Eleanor, women who had mended families while the world rebuilt nations. Donations trickled in, first from locals, then from across the country, touched by the viral news of Eleanor's presidential call. But amid the excitement, a twist emerged unexpectedly. During one of their planning sessions at the nursing home, a man in his 70s knocked on the door. "Mrs. Thompson?" he asked, his voice hesitant, eyes scanning the room. Eleanor looked up from her notes, her brow furrowing. He introduced himself as Robert Hayes, a retired historian specializing in World War II records. "I read about you in the paper," he said, pulling out a worn folder. "And I think I have something that belongs to you." Robert explained that while researching unpublished letters from Normandy, he had stumbled upon one addressed to Eleanor undelivered, lost in the chaos of war. It was from William, written just days before his death. Eleanor's hands shook as she took the envelope, yellowed and fragile. The room fell silent, Mia and Sarah exchanging wide-eyed glances. This was no ordinary find. It was a voice from the grave, a twist that shattered the narrative Eleanor had clung to for decades. She read it aloud, her voice breaking. My dearest Ellie, if you're reading this, know that every step on that beach was for you and our little one. I carry your photo in my pocket, your smile my shield. Promise me you'll live fully, love again if you can. Yours forever, Will. Tears streamed down her face, but they were mixed with a profound joy. All these years, she had wondered if he thought of her in his final moments. Now she knew. Robert stayed for hours, sharing how he had tracked her down after the news broke. Your story inspired me to dig deeper, he admitted. There are so many like this lost connections waiting to be found. This revelation shifted everything. The foundation wasn't just about financial aid anymore. It became a repository for untold stories, a bridge to the past. Mia suggested incorporating historical research, and Robert volunteered his expertise, becoming an unexpected ally. As word spread, more letters and artifacts surfaced. A daughter of another widow donated her mother's diary. A veteran sent medals with notes of gratitude. Eleanor's life, once solitary, buzzed with purpose. Yet, the emotional weight pressed on her. Nights brought dreams of William, vivid and haunting, as if the letter had reopened wounds long scarred over. One afternoon, during a foundation event at a local library, Eleanor met Clara, another war widow in her 90s. Clara's husband had served with William, and they bonded instantly over shared memories. But Clara carried her own burden, resentment toward the government for years of neglect. They give medals, but what about the loneliness? She confided. Eleanor listened, her heart aching in recognition. This encounter added depth to their mission, emphasizing emotional support groups. The president's call had ripple effects beyond imagination. His office sent a grant, boosting the foundation's reach. Media interviews followed, Eleanor speaking with quiet eloquence about resilience and remembrance. It's not about pity, she said in one. It's about honoring the full story of the battles fought at home. Challenges arose, too. Bureaucratic hurdles in setting up the nonprofit tested their patience, mirroring the memorial denial. Mia's enthusiasm clashed with Eleanor's measured pace, leading to tense moments. We need to move fast, Mia urged. But wisdom comes slow, Eleanor replied, teaching the value of perseverance. Robert's involvement brought another layer. He revealed his own connection. His father had been in William's unit, surviving by sheer luck. I grew up hearing about Sergeant Thompson's bravery, he said. This personal tie deepened their collaboration, turning strangers into family. As winter approached, Eleanor reflected on the twist of fate. The denied entry, once a humiliation, had sparked a movement. She wrote letters to other widows, enclosing copies of William's words as inspiration. We are not forgotten, she penned. Our stories endure. Sarah noticed the change in her grandmother, eyes brighter, steps surer. You're glowing, Grandma. Eleanor smiled. It's the light of purpose, dear. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Eleanor sat with the undelivered letter, tracing William's handwriting. Thank you, she whispered to the empty room, feeling his presence. The foundation's first gala was planned for spring, a celebration of lives intertwined by war and healed by connection. But deeper emotions stirred. Eleanor confided in Clara about the guilt she felt had she lived fully as William asked. Clara squeezed her hand. You raised a family, built a life. That's living. Their friendship became a cornerstone, two souls finding solace in shared silence. Mia's role evolved, too. She shared her own story, a grandfather lost in Vietnam, inspiring her volunteer work. You gave me courage to face my past, she told Eleanor. These revelations wove a tapestry of human vulnerability, emphasizing that healing was collective. As the foundation grew, so did Eleanor's resolve. At 95, she discovered that age was no barrier to impact. The presidential call was the catalyst, but the true power lay in the hearts it touched. With spring's arrival, the foundation's inaugural gala loomed, a beacon of hope amid blooming cherry blossoms in D.C. Eleanor, now a symbol of enduring spirit, prepared her speech with care, words crafted to inspire rather than dwell on pain. But as invitations went out, Another unexpected twist unfolded, one that challenged the very core of her journey. A journalist named Lena contacted the foundation, requesting an interview. At first, it seemed routine, but Lena revealed she was the granddaughter of the security guard who had denied Eleanor entry that fateful day. "My grandfather passed last year," Lena explained over the phone, her voice laced with regret. "He told me about you before he died, how it haunted him. He was just following orders, but he wished he hadn't." This revelation hit Eleanor like a wave, stirring a mix of anger and compassion. She agreed to meet Lena, curious yet guarded. They sat in a quiet park near the memorial, cherry petals drifting like confetti. Lena shared photos of her grandfather, a veteran himself from Vietnam, his face lined with the burdens of duty. "He enforced rules to cope with his own traumas," she said. "But your story made him question everything." Eleanor listened, her initial resentment softening into understanding. This twist humanized the guard, transforming him from a villain into a flawed soul shaped by war's echoes. "We all carry scars," Eleanor replied gently. "Perhaps forgiveness is the greatest memorial." Lena's eyes filled with tears, and she pledged to write an article highlighting the human side of such incidents, donating proceeds to the foundation. The gala night arrived, the venue aglow with lights and murmurs of anticipation. Eleanor stood at the podium, William's medal gleaming under spotlights. "Tonight, we honor not just the fallen, but the survivors, the widows who wove strength from sorrow," she began, her voice steady and resonant. Guests included veterans, politicians, and widows from across eras, their stories intermingling like threads in a quilt. Mia emceed with flair, introducing speakers, including Robert, who unveiled a digital archive of lost letters. Clara shared a poignant tale of her own, her words raw and real. But the highlight was a surprise video message from the president. "Mrs. Thompson, your courage reminds us that America's heart beats in its people." Applause thundered, Eleanor's cheeks flushing with humble pride. Amid the celebration, Eleanor felt a pang of melancholy. William should have been here, holding her hand. Yet, in the faces around her, Sarah beaming, Mia hugging volunteers, Robert nodding approvingly, she saw his legacy alive. The foundation raised funds for scholarships, counseling, and historical preservation, ensuring no widow felt alone. Post-gala, challenges persisted. Media scrutiny intensified, some questioning the foundation's rapid rise. Eleanor faced skeptics who dismissed her story as sensationalism. "Why now?" one reporter probed. "Because injustice demands action," she countered, her fire undimmed. Lena's article went viral, sparking national dialogue on veteran support. It detailed the guard's remorse, adding nuance to Eleanor's narrative. Readers responded with letters of support, sharing their own overlooked sacrifices. This broadened the foundation's scope, partnering with organizations for mental health resources. Personally, Eleanor grappled with the twist. Forgiving the guard freed her from bitterness, allowing deeper healing. She visited his grave with Lena, laying flowers, a gesture of closure. "Rest easy," she whispered, feeling William's approval in the breeze. Summer brought expansion, workshops for young people on war's human cost, led by Mia. Robert mentored interns, unearthing more artifacts. Clara became a confidant, their late-night talks affirming life's resilience. One day, Eleanor received a Packagean anonymous donation of World War II memorabilia, including a photo of William's unit. It included a note from a grateful son. Tears flowed as she recognized the sender, the child of a comrade William had saved. This quiet act reinforced the interconnectedness of sacrifice. As fall returned, marking a year since the denial, Eleanor revisited the memorial. No barriers this time. She walked freely, tracing names with reverence. "We did it, Will," she murmured. The foundation thrived, but Eleanor knew true value lay in changed lives, like the widow who found community, or the veteran who shared his story. At 95, she embodied hope, proving that one voice could echo eternally. Yet, whispers of fatigue crept in. Eleanor confided in Sarah. "I'm tired, but fulfilled." Sarah hugged her. "You've given enough, Grandma. Now rest." But rest eluded her. Purpose propelled her forward. A new project emerged, a book compiling widows' letters, co-authored with Clara and Lena. Writing unearthed buried emotions, cathartic and revealing. Through it all, the presidential call remained a touchstone reminder that dignity could be reclaimed. Eleanor's story inspired legislation for better veteran access, her testimony before Congress poignant and powerful. As winter neared, she reflected on the twists, the lost letter, the guard's granddaughter, each reshaping her perspective, emphasizing empathy's power. In the quiet hush of another winter, Eleanor sat by her window, the book manuscript spread before her like a map of memories. The foundation had grown into a national force, with chapters in multiple states, but personal reckonings loomed larger now. One evening, as snow blanketed the world outside, Sarah arrived with news that would deliver the final, profound twist. "Grandma, there's someone here to see you," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with mystery. Into the room stepped a man in his 80s, leaning on a cane, his uniform adorned with medals. "Mrs. Thompson? I'm Captain Elias Grant. I served with William." Eleanor's heart stopped. Survivors from his unit were thought long gone. Elias explained he had been in hiding, plagued by survivor's guilt, until her story reached him through the Foundation's archive. He recounted the beach landing, William's heroism in saving Elias and others, taking a fatal hit in the process. "He spoke of you constantly," Elias said, voice thick with emotion. "Said you were his reason to fight." Eleanor wept openly, this eyewitness account breathing life into faded tales. But the twist deepened. Elias revealed he had a daughter, now a senator pushing veteran reforms, inspired by her father's silent stories. This encounter galvanized Eleanor anew. Elias joined the Foundation's board, his testimony adding authenticity. Together, they lobbied for policy changes, ensuring memorials were accessible to all who served or sacrificed. The book incorporated his chapter, transforming it into a testament of interconnected fates. As spring bloomed again, the book's launch coincided with a Foundation anniversary. Eleanor, frilier but spirited, read excerpts to a packed auditorium. "War steals, but love restores," she concluded, applause echoing her words' truth. Challenges faded, successes mounted. The Foundation funded homes for elderly veterans, scholarships for their descendants. Eleanor's health waned, but her impact endured. In quiet moments, she conversed with William in her mind, feeling his pride. One sunny afternoon, overlooking the memorial from a bench, Eleanor closed her eyes, peace enveloping her. "We've honored them all," she thought. Her story, from denial to presidential acclaim, embodied human resilience, the capacity to turn pain into purpose, isolation into community. As the sun set, casting golden hues, Eleanor knew her chapter was closing, but the narrative continued in those she touched. Mia, now leading the Foundation, Sarah, preserving family lore, Robert, archiving histories, Clara, mentoring widows, Lena, amplifying voices, Elias, bridging generations. At 95, now 96, Eleanor Thompson had not just lived, she had ignited change. The war widow who was denied entry became the beacon who opened doors for countless others. In her final days, surrounded by loved ones, Eleanor whispered, "Tell them to remember not the wars, but the humanity." Her passing was gentle, like a sigh, but her legacy roared on. The Foundation thrived, annual galas bearing her name. Presidents cited her in speeches, schools taught her story. William's Medal, donated to the memorial, symbolized eternal gratitude. And so, in the annals of American history, Eleanor's tale stood as a reminder. Injustice may bar the way, but perseverance, empathy, and unexpected connections can summon even the highest calls to action. The human spirit, unbroken, writes the truest memorials.